This adult has a song called Usewa. The correct title is Usewa. It's the anime with the creepy-nuts opening called Dandadan. It's Dandadan. If I say Okasan, am I saying mother in modern Japanese? Not quite. I should say Okasan. Now, are these standard Japanese pronunciation? たくさんだよ. Standard Japanese is たくさんだよ. 失礼いたします. Standard Japanese is 失礼いたします. 医者です. Standard Japanese is 医者です. If you missed more than half of this, don't worry. This isn't a test. I just want you to feel how subtle Japanese pronunciation really is. Hi, I am Seijo Noriyuki. Welcome to my Japanese learning channel. I'm an English teacher with a background in language education. I learned Japanese entirely on my own, and I'm currently preparing for Japanese teaching qualifications. On this channel, I focus on the real problems learners run into, and more importantly, how to practice your way out of them. This is the first video in my series on Japanese pronunciation and the gojuon called Why Japanese Sounds. The gojuon isn't just 15 sounds. It actually covers over 100 basic, very systematic syllables in modern Japanese. It may look overwhelming at first, but once you understand how it works, you'll see that Japanese pronunciation is surprisingly simple. If you were curious why I say that, you can click the video link on your screen. And today, we'll start with the 5 most fundamental Japanese vowels. When it comes to pronunciation, the most important role in the gojuon is actually the agyo. That's because it represents the 5 vowel phonemes of Japanese. When learning a new language, we naturally rely on similar sounds from our native language to get close to the target pronunciation. That's not a mistake. It's normal and efficient. The real risk isn't using your native language as a reference. It's choosing the wrong reference point. What you're seeing here is a simplified vowel chart. We can think of the mouth as a rough quadrilateral, where each vowel corresponds to the position of the highest point of the tongue. For example, this is roughly where your tongue is for I. This is for I. And this is for A. When we overlay vowels from Japanese, American English, and Mandarin, one interesting thing stands out. The vowels I are actually very close to each other. That's why, for both English and Chinese speakers, producing a natural-sounding Japanese I is relatively easy. The key is don't turn it into a diphthong, and keep your tone and mouth shape consistent. But among the 5 Japanese vowels, the most challenging one for both English and Chinese speakers is usually I. So, in this video, we'll focus mainly on Japanese I. Let's start with Mandarin speakers. In Mandarin, there isn't a vowel that closely matches the Japanese I. Some materials explain it like this. Japanese I is different from Mandarin W. Don't round your lips. Relax your mouth. Move the tongue forward. This explanation isn't wrong. But there's a problem. The reference point is still Mandarin W. Learners keep thinking about W while trying not to round their lips. So when a bilabial consonant appears, the mouth automatically falls back. As a result, umai often ends up sounding like wumai. So if there's a safer anchor in Mandarin, yes, say this word with me. 茄子. Say it again. And this time, hold the final z, 茄子. You should notice that your lips are not rounded. Your mouth may feel slightly smiling. Your tongue is further forward than Mandarin wu. There's a slight sense of muscular engagement. Remember this mouth shape. And now, without changing it, try producing Japanese u. Apply just a bit more tension, but don't round your lips. U, u, u. Then let the tongue move slightly backward. U, u, u. You will notice that this sound is already very close to Japanese u. One important clarification: we are not saying that z is Japanese u, and we are not treating it as the final target sound. In fact, from a phonetic point of view, the tongue position for z is more forward than that for Japanese u. But precisely because this forward tongue position isn't involve lip rounding, it helps Chinese learners avoid falling back to their native wu sound. That's why this pronunciation works so well as a safe starting anchor for transitioning toward the Japanese throat-controlled articulation. Now, let's look at native English speakers. In American English, the u sound is actually produced further forward than the Mandarin wu. And in accents like California English, this forward tendency is even stronger. You may not have noticed this, but when many Americans say ooh, their mouth shape shifts from relaxed to more rounded. During these shifts, the tongue also moves slightly forward. Let's first hear the American pronunciation of student. Student. Now, I will say it again, using a Mandarin style wu, a Chinglish version. Student. You should be able to clearly feel that the American English u is placed further forward. So, for native English speakers, learning the Japanese finding the tongue position is usually less difficult than it is for Mandarin speakers. But English speakers have different problems. The mouth movement used for u easily carries over into Japanese. Do, oo. The sound ado-sen on the first take is called usewa. Usewa. So what should you do when pronouncing Japanese u? Keep your lips still. Try using a u from unstressed syllables. For example, the u in influence. 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 Feel this unstressed u. Influence. U. That's it. Now focus on two things. Don't round your lips. Don't change your mouth shape. Include. U. Useba. Use this u, the one you normally don't even notice, as safe starting anchor for pronouncing the Japanese u. Even among native speakers of the same language, the pronunciation problems people get stuck on are not the same. For example, many Chinese Mandarin speakers, influenced by the Pinyin spelling en, end up pronouncing the Japanese word sensei close to sensei. It's the same kind of habit that makes them pronounce the end as the end. In this case, trying slightly opening your mouth and letting the S sound come forward. Sensei. Repeat after me. Sensei. Sensei. This is much less common in Taiwan. In Taiwanese Mandarin, the vowel written as n is less centralized, so this type of shift is much less noticeable. If you've also heard people say sensei or the end, go ahead and like this video or leave a comment. I'd love to see how common this really is among my viewers. Personally, when it comes to foreign accents, I don't believe you need perfect standard pronunciation unless you have a specific reason. If communication works and the learner isn't bothered by it, that's already good enough. After all, everyone has an accent. That's just part of who you are. But if you do want to get closer to standard pronunciation, your native language and even your regional background will inevitably get in this way. And that's exactly why this channel exists. If there's a Japanese sound you've always struggled with, pause the video for a moment and leave a comment telling me which sound troubles you the most. You can also like existing comments that mention the same issue. For the most frequently mentioned sounds, I will make a video to show you a clear entry point for practicing them. And don't forget to follow this channel. Based on my own learning and teaching experience, for both native English speakers and native Mandarin speakers, producing the 5 Japanese vowels by themselves is actually not that difficult. The real challenge begins when you start speaking Japanese in full words and sentences. That's when rhythm problems show up. Native English speakers and native Mandarin speakers struggle for different reasons, but they often run into the same result in the end. A very typical example is confusion between oji-san and oji-san. Mandarin is a tonal language. It has stress, and it also has a complex tone system. For example, 老公 and 劳工 are completely different words. However, Mandarin does not use vowel ends to distinguish meaning. To native Mandarin speakers, 老公 and 老公 sound exactly the same. This is a point that many Japanese learners overlook. As a result, for some Mandarin-speaking beginners, oji-san and oji-san also end up sounding identical. American English, on the other hand, is a stress-timed language with very clear strong V patterns. For example, we say ticket as ticket, not ticketo, and not chiquetto. In oji-san, the high pitch falls on ji. Native English speakers naturally treat this syllable like a stressed syllable in English, which makes it sound close to oji-san. In addition, when pronouncing long vowels like e and o, English speakers are often influenced by their native language and unconsciously slide towards o and a. Japanese uses syllabic characters in writing, but in speech, it is measured in units called Mora. Each Mora has a relative even, balanced length. We'll talk about Mora in detail in a future video. For today, let's skip the theory and focus only on vowels and rhythm. Oji-san has 4 Mora with a high pitch on the second Mora. Please repeat after me. Low, high, low, low. Da, 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 da. Oji-san. Oji-san. Oji-san has 5 Mora, again with a high pitch on the second Mora. Low, high, low, low, low. Da, 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 da. Oji-san. Oji-san. Many textbooks and reference books list a large number of vocabulary words under each Kana character, but at the very beginning stage of learning Kana, I don't recommend immediately reading and memorizing those words lists. Later on, you will realize that many of those so-called organized vocabulary lists are actually not very useful. More importantly, at this stage, you haven't really encountered the most core concept of Japanese pronunciation yet, Mora. Right now, put all your time and attention into the single most important feature of Japanese pronunciation, rhythm. If you do that, you won't keep on getting stuck on problems like telling the differences between おじさん and おじいさん. What I recommend is a pronunciation memory exercise that trains your oral muscles. I call it tongue sliding practice. If you watch Japanese dramas or documentaries, you've probably seen scenes like this. A group of people gather together, repeating rhythmic, tongue-twister-like sound patterns in unison. This kind of articulation training is commonly used by Japanese announcers and actors. For example, あえいあおうあえいうえおあおあいうえお. Japanese has only 5 vowels. Practicing sequences like this is a very efficient way to get used to Japanese mouth shapes, pronunciation movements, and rhythm all at once. When you add high and low pitch patterns, you also develop a very direct feel for Japanese intonation. Let's review the agyo practice with pitch. Low, high, high, low, high, high, low, high, 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 low, high, low, high, low, high, high, low, high. Da da da, da da da, da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da. Keep a strong sense of rhythm. Each sound should be short and clear. At the beginning, there's no need to rush. Take it slowly. A, e, I, a, o, u, a, e, I, u, e, o, a, o, a, I, u, e, o. Then, gradually increase the speed. A, e, I, a, o, u, a, e, I, u, e, o, a, o, a, I, u, e, o. Finally, aim to say it naturally. A, e, I, a, o, u, a, e, I, u, e, o, a, o, a, I, u, e, o. As you progress, practice one line at a time from kakeki, kakoku, kakekiku, keko, kako, kakiku, keko to wa e I, wa o u, wa e I u, e o wa o, wa I u e o. Once you're familiar with this rhythm and start paying attention to pitch, you'll stop pronouncing I like the English I. This exercise is also very helpful for memorizing Kana at the very beginning. You can read aloud while writing, practicing one line at a time again and again. If you care about handwritten Japanese, you can rearrange the gojuon as shown on screen. Change it to a light or grayscale color and print it out to create your own Kana practice sheets. Both hiragana and katakana can be prepared this way. The chart shown here uses a standard Mincho font, but you can choose any font that suits you or that you personally like. For example, my favorite is the Kozan brush font. It's a nice way to combine pronunciation practice with calligraphy. The gojuon includes both seon and dakuon rows. On this channel, each row has a corresponding shadowing practice video. Please check the links in the description box. Lastly, if you keep struggling to memorizing Kana, please don't feel discouraged. That's completely normal. Think about it for a moment when you learn Chinese pinyin, during symbols, or the English alphabet. Did you memorize everything perfectly right away? Of course not. All of this took time. Here, I like to share one method that I personally used when I was memorizing the gojuon. First, assign the vowels a, I, u, e, o to the numbers 1 through 5. Next, prepare 5 by 5 grid and freely fill in the numbers 1 to 5. There's only one rule. Within each row, the numbers 1 to 5 must not repeat. For example, in the first row, I randomly write 4, 1, 2, 3, 5. Then, the next rows could be 32541 13542 32154 and 54321. So what comes next? Following the order a, I, U, E, O equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Read the kana in each row according to the numbers. So the first row 4, 1, 2, 3, 5 becomes E, A, I, U, O. The next rows will be I, O, E, A, U, A, U, O, E, I, U, I, A, O, E, O, E, U, I, A. Please practice this exercise separately for hiragana and katakana, writing them out on paper. In this way, your pronunciation, writing, and memory can all improve at the same time. Likewise, for each row of the gojuon, both seon and dakuon. This channel provides corresponding memorization practice videos. You can find all the video links in the description box. We've covered a lot today. In the next video, we'll focus on Japanese consonants. If you feel that today's content was generally helpful for your studies, you're very welcome to subscribe to this channel. And feel free to share this video with anyone who might find this useful. This is 成長Noriyuki's channel. 日本語の勉強、皆さん一緒に頑張りましょう。